Looks like the gun is loaded, the trigger has been pulled. Insidious Chill's discard effects are on the table here. That's the game, folks.
Andrew, of course, is going to activate creepers.
Green light. Come on in. Sonata Arcanics.
Oh, here we go. Sonata. Are we pitching into it? Looks like we are.
We are. And now Andrew just has to go, all right.
All right, the moment of truth. We've got attack, attack, non-attack, non-attack. Wow.
Oh, God. Oh.
If Porter's got the zero go again in hand, I think this is game. And it's a rabble.
It's a ravenous rabble.
Hello and welcome to the FAB Team League weekly wrap-up. I'm Sean Hill, joined today by my co-host, Mr. Andy Modell. Andy, how are you?
Hey, I'm well. How are you doing, Sean?
I'm good. I've been looking forward to this all week. As always, it's always good to get some new games in and see what our players are up to in the league. And we're down to 8 teams, which means that we're getting to the real meat of the quality of the players that we had in the league. Sadly, our team didn't make the cut, but we're going to be seeing some really exciting matches tonight. And I think we're actually going to go right into the first game. Who are we going to be seeing, Andy?
Yeah, so today's game is actually a recording. This game was played earlier in the week, but we're bringing it to you now. Game number 1 is going to be some real heavy hitters. We've got Michael Hamilton from the Indy Arsenal, world champion. You know him, you love him, against Porter Jones from Team Card Advantage.
Wow, and so we're going to be getting you on the screen right now. We should be pulling up the game. Good, perfect. As you can see, we've got 2 players here. Hades Blade is Michael Hamilton, and Porter Jones is Viserai. Michael Hamilton on his signature Icelander, and a deck that I love to see more of, and I think, Andy, a deck you're a big fan of, is Viserai.
Yeah, we've definitely been streaming a lot of Viserai matches lately. Recently, I think we've done 3 between Viserai and Oldhim that I've been commentating on, and we've definitely seen Michael Hamilton on Icelander before. I think, in general, Viserai is one of those heroes that has been heavily impacted by Icelander in the meta, so it'll be interesting seeing how, with the cards coming from Dynasty, this matchup ends up playing out.
Well, I had a chance to look over a game with you where we saw Viserai playing cards like the new Duet card and Cryptic Crossing, I believe the card is. When you look at those cards from Dynasty, you're thinking, oh, this is no Swarming Gloomveil. Is anybody going to play that? And we're seeing that players are actually finding very interesting ways to make those cards relevant. Is there like a sweetheart that you have from Dynasty that you'd like to see more play in Runeblade?
I haven't actually been looking at Runeblades in Dynasty much myself. I've been focusing on my ice heroes lately, but I'm definitely looking forward to seeing Viserai become more of a meta deck. We've seen Briar be the real star Runeblade lately, but hopefully, as these games and as people in their pro quests start to run Viserai, learn how to really tune him with the new cards, we end up seeing something impressive that ends up bringing him back into the meta.
Course. I mean, I think back to pre-Scalata ban, and Viserai was just so good. But you're right. Right now, we're seeing a lot of Briars, and we're seeing people innovate on Briar. She's so close to living legend, but we're still seeing people, playing Crown of Providence, cash in, and a few new interesting cards to try and accelerate the rate at which that can, just wallop you with Channel Mount and, infinite card draw.
Yeah, I saw some interesting chatter about Crown of Dominion Briar on Twitter yesterday. Still not sure what the Viserai decks are going to look like. They could, in theory, employ similar strategies. Just the card advantage that you get from the Crown of Dominion, the gold counter, and the cash-in, it's basically a pot of greed if you have the right equipment in the deck build.
Oh yeah, and Pot of Greed bringing back awful and interesting memories from my young teens.
Back in my day, it was Bill from Pokemon, draw 2 cards.
There you go, Bill. Yeah, good old Bill. Or Professor Oak, flush your hand, draw 7. How good would that be?
Speaking of crowns, though, it looks like Viserai today, Porter is going to be rocking Crown of Dichotomy, the Runeblade common over from Arcane Rising. So definitely not a new one.
No, Crown of Dichotomy, it's any item that says, something plus Arcane Barrier 1 is just a step up from Null Rune.
Yeah, if you have text on the card, it's better than no text, even if that text only comes in 1% of the time. Similar to how we saw Joe Cologne actually activate his um oh the what are the wow, I'm at loss for words. The gloves for Guardian.
The gloves for Guardian is Crater Fists. Yeah,
Yes, we
Crater
saw him
Fists.
activate his Crater Fist the other day on one
Majestic
of our
from
previous
Crucible.
streams.
That's rare. That is very rare. What was he on? Was he on Bravo or Oldham? He was on Oldham, wasn't he?
Yeah, it was an interesting game. He didn't end up winning that one. Over here, speaking of new cards, we're seeing a leadoff with that Deathly Duet coming in from Porter on turn 0.
Wow, definitely duet. Like it's one of those cards that when you look at, you say, is it really that good? But when you actually start to think about it, if players like Porter are playing it, then it must be valid.
Yeah, it's certainly something new. It's another 2/4 that or 2 cost Runeblade attack has an interesting effect depending on what you pitch. You have a few options. And if we're building decks that are more like this with a bit go tall, potentially pummel, we're going to be seeing a bit more of these as we have on the stream so far. On Hamilton's side, though, we see what looks like a very solid turn 1, getting out that Amulet of Ice for free, being able to play an Aether Ice Vein fused, and with a card, a Polar Blast in Arsenal that'll let him basically draw the card and swing with his Waning Moon for free next turn. This looks like an excellent start for Michael Hamilton.
And I'm having a difficult time looking at the color of the Aether Eyes Vein. I believe it's a yellow. But the Aether Eyes Vein, the second you breach that 4 point, realistically, not a lot of heroes will be able to block that 4 point of Arcane. So it just needs to deal you 1. And last time we were casting together, we kind of made a point to say Viserai needs 3 to 4 cards, whether it's card in Arsenal plus 3 cards in hand or 2 cards in hand. The second you start losing cards, Viserai can really lose tempo.
Yeah, and I think some of the more go tall, potentially, styles of Viserai build that you're getting with the 2 costs, the Deathly Duet, the Shrill the Skull form we see him discard, might be better tuned to handle the disruption that you get from Icelander. Interesting to note, he is Porter only running AB2, so any of those Aether Ice Veins are basically guaranteed to hit.
And that's also a statement as to how good Creepers is. Because if you're willing to say, you know what, I'm going to go AB2 into this Icelander just because I want to guarantee myself an activation of Creepers, that's a really a testament of how good the card is.
Yeah, Spellbound Creepers, the fact that you can use it over and over again when you decide to run it, definitely a powerful card. Not sure how powerful it ends up being against Icelander with her ability to try and disrupt your getting the arcane damage in, and she can block. She has AB3 right now, I believe, just between her boots and Alluvian Constellus, so it's going to be hard to actually deal the arcane damage you need to keep the creepers on.
Yeah, and Alluvian Constellus, it's one of those cards like when Uprising came out, there were so many great cards in the set. People didn't really latch on to Alluvian all that much. It was the most undervalued legendary in the set.
Yeah, seeing legendaries for $10 or less always makes me cry. Just great for the players, but for those of us who may have opened a box and oh yay, $10 legendary.
Well, you never want to open a card and go, "Oh, it's this legendary." But now I'm seeing, Icelander being more and more prevalent, and with Runeblades coming around, Alluvian is very good value.
Yeah, it's definitely effective. One of the considerations you have playing against Icelander is it worth to threaten AB or like 1 arcane damage or whatever when you know she's got the resources, she's going to block it, and she's going to get a counter on that Alluvian. That's basically, 2 counters is a free Waning Moon for her. Over here, though, speaking of arcane, we know we're going to be seeing some rune chants coming in because we got a Revel in Runeblood. This is going to give 4 plus the 1 from Viserai's ability on top of what we got from Spellbound Creepers. So this is going to come in for 6 rune chants and the 2 and 2 from Rosetta Thorn, 10 damage on top of that Storm and Gloomveil that just threw out.
And that's pretty backbreaking. Revel in Runeblood is one of those cards that on its own in any deck is great, but in Viserai, when paired with cards like Mordred Tide, the value just gets exponentially better. You can get, what is it, like 7 damage out of 1 card.
With Mordred-Tide, yeah. It's definitely one of those cards that provides bursts for Viserai that he needs to compete. in games like these.
And we're going to see Michael Hamilton pitch to block a lot of that arcane and feed that Alluvian Constella.
Yeah, looks like he's still taking some damage and then taking all 4 from Rosetta Thorn. So 36 to 25, not a bad place to be for Viserai. Waning Moon is coming in to even that a bit more. We got to remember, when we have Icelander on the board, the life totals don't actually reflect how the game's going to end because we got those Storm Striders that are effectively an extra half a turn in when Icelander needs them, usually to close out the game.
Yeah, and also in this specific situation, we're seeing that Michael Hamilton had a scar for scar. So, taking that little hit, going, let me have less life than you. It's fine. Here's a scar for scar. Would go again. The fact that she starts, already at 36 life, enables cards like Scar for Scar to be good on an opening hand and Wounded Bull. But there's also that play of saying, I can go lower than you. I can come back, and then I can close the gap much more efficiently than you can.
Yeah, it's definitely something, especially with the build of Icelander, that Michael Hamilton pioneered, the wounding bull style with all of these physical attacks. It really gets very effective value, trying to get maximum value for the cards he plays on his turn, as well as being able to still provide a decent showing on the opponent's turn, thanks to Icelander's abilities.
One thing that I like about the match that we're commentating on is you could tell the players are very much taking their time, making sure that they make the right moves. And for Michael Hamilton, this is something that if you've ever watched him play, it's kind of innate. Porter's also an outstanding player, but there's a respect going on there where here's the question, what are you going to do? And everybody takes the time to really think about the right play, because it's all about that. If I make 18 right decisions and you make 17, I have an edge over you.
Yeah, speaking of decisions, we know the aura that Porter has out there, the incantation, I believe, provides a window for Michael Hamilton if he wants to activate his cards at instant speed at the beginning of the action phase. So that's potentially a risky moment if he wanted to give a Frostbite over to Porter. Looks like he chose not to do that this turn, and Porter taking advantage by not only playing the Become the Arc Knight, a non-attack action to trigger Viserai, or to enable Viserai's ability, but now we're reading the runes. Going to be 3 rune chants, plus the rune chant from Viserai, plus the rune chant we already got from Runeblood Incantation. That's 5 rune chants, basically deferred damage this turn. Michael Hamilton having all these opportunities to do something in response, not choosing to take those yet, but there's still time this turn to see if Michael has anything up his sleeve.
Well, looking at the play right now, I think that if you're the Viserai player, you want to give your opponent unanswerable turns. Essentially, you want to be able to go so wide and wide. Let's call it wide. It's a tall version of wide. Let's say, getting a million rune chance is kind of that weird spot where you can go. I'm going to present 25 damage this turn. Yeah, sure, I didn't do much on the last 2 turns, but it doesn't really matter all that much. Thinking of that last card he arsenaled also, that card must be one of those, high value cards to warrant the kind of turn he just took.
Yeah, there are a few things you want to consider when you're playing against Icelander, especially as a hero like Viserai. One is that on Icelander's turn, she can sometimes force you to put cards out of your hand that you don't want to. It's not necessarily, oh, I don't block, I have my full grip. It's, oh, they use their headpiece, I'm blanking on names today.
All good. You know what? And it's not a bad thing, because I'm looking at the play that Michael just did, and I have to say something about this. Channel into Wounded Bull. Channel Lake Frigid is one of those cards that when it got printed, everybody for like a week said nothing of it, and then everybody realized just how good it was. And being able to pair that with arguably one of the best attack action cards in the deck is just it's so good.
Yeah, I witnessed a play like this at my locals last week, and the opponent was not happy to see that. But this does segue into the other advantage Icelander has that Viserai has to watch out for, and that's the ability to tax or increase the costs of stuff. So not only will a Viserai player or any opponent of Icelander have to worry about potentially losing cards they don't want to on the opponent's turn, but stuff on their turn is going to cost more, ruining that curve that Viserai tends to see if they can play something like the Lead the Charge or a Mauve Skies, give something Go Again, play the thing with Go Again, follow up with Rosetta Thorn. a little tax like the Channel Lake Frigid, like a Frostbite, can make that all more difficult. And we're seeing Viserai players adapt a little bit, not necessarily saying, okay, here's my blue, I need every one of those resources, trying to figure out what can they do about that. Here we have
Something
a
he can do about that.
yeah. Here we have an effect that increases the costs by 1 from Channel Lake Frigid, and another effect that decreases the costs by 1 for each rune chant. -2, I believe, is the cost of this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Amplify, not become.
amplify,
Amplify
right?
the Arcanite. Sorry.
Yeah. Over here, we don't have I guess our brains right for this weekend. It's been storming where I am. I can't really sit outside without negative wind chills, so I think that's affecting not only my body but also my brain.
You know what, man? I'm on holiday brain as well, and I think everybody watching this is probably, winding down, getting ready for tomorrow and the holidays over the weekend. But looking at the play right now, one person who isn't winding down is Porter, because that play was amazing. Being able to play that amplify while your opponent has a channel out, essentially negating the play completely, forcing blocks from Michael Hamilton. Michael Hamilton is going to say, you know what, that's totally cute. Here's a red Aether Ice Vein, pitching the Fable, gaining 1 life, fused. And this is where you think, I would really like to have AB5 here.
Yeah, there's something about Red Aether Ice Vein that there's a reason they banned it in Blitz, let's say. For Porter, at least, pitching the Heart of Fiendel, yeah, Michael Hamilton gained a life, but it looks like that Channel Lake Frigid won't be as oppressive next turn, unless suddenly there's a way to magic 2 ice cards into that pitch zone with only the 1 in hand.
No, and I think, you have to also weigh that into the equation. Is it worth saving that channel? Like, how much is that channel like worth saving? I've seen Briar players go to great lengths to be able to get a second turn out of that of a channel Mount Heroic. But looking at the current game plan, I don't think he would have benefited from being able to save that Ice Vein.
Oh, looks like chat is concerned about everyone's audio going to the left.
Ooh.
Just to the producer, did you see anything about that?
Yeah, there might be some stereo. Apologies, guys. Thank you for pointing that out. We're going to work on fixing that right now. We have someone in the background who's working really hard to get everything going smoothly. So appreciate you pointing that out for sure.
Yep. All right, continuing on here. It looks like Porter is taking significant damage from the Aether Ice Vein, discarding a Rune Flash, it looks like. And Michael Hamilton, seeing that he chose not to give any cards for Arcane Barrier, activating that amulet to really take another card out of Porter's hand. Let's make that potential turn as minimal as possible.
Absolutely. And, looking at Michael Hamilton's play, I don't think there's a better card, in the deck than Aether Ice Vein. There's a reason why it's banned in Blitz. The card is extremely efficient at getting your opponents, to essentially give you a time walk. It's a time walk on a stick in a way.
Mm-hmm. All right, over here we have the Rune Chant from Incantation. That's the last one here. Followed up. We can see that, I believe. Adam, you might want to go back to the game if you can.
Sorry, our producer found the issue. He's going to it, and there we are. Perfect.
All right, so, oh wow, it looks like we have another Amplify the Arcanite while we were looking over to the left.
And this one has Go again, and will generate a Rune Chant on hit.
Yeah, and the nice thing for Porter over here is, it looks like in addition to that 1 resource he has left, he still has Tunic up. So if he were to get a Frostbite from Michael, he can still swing his Rosetta Thorn if he desires.
Absolutely, and why wouldn't he? It's one of those things where there's also a point where you could go, if Michael were to say, here's a Frostbite, he could still use the Tunic in response, get that extra resource, pay the 2 Rosetta, and especially if the Amplify hits, you're generating 5 free damage from that Rosetta. So, or actually 6 because he already has an extra Rune Chant lying down. So, yeah, I think that'd be very optimal. But Michael Hamilton is. Like I've never played against him. Unfortunately, I'd love to say that I have, but I haven't. But I've seen him play both at Pro Tour New Jersey and Pro Tour Lille, and he does not make mistakes. He's extremely calculated. So you have to be very vigilant, because when you're taking big swings like this and opening up yourself to 19 life might feel comfortable, but against Icelander, 19 life is a very small gap to close.
Yeah, definitely. There's we're reaching the point of the game where not only does every decision matters the whole time, but really you're considering what do I need to do to close out the match overall. The life totals are such that 1 turn, 2 turns, maybe all there is left, and weighing the decision, do I try to stall the game out a little longer, set myself up for a better position, or do I need to strike back at the life to make it so that I can end it before they end me? These are the sorts of considerations that you really see right about here. Looks like the rune chant is prevented. We get another counter for Michael's Alluvian Constellus, and Michael is swinging back, giving that frostbite, using the Aether Hail, basically threatening back. Not only here's some damage at you, but I've enabled the ability to swing with my Waning Moon. The pajamas can pay for it, and if I want, I can block out this Amplify. It looks like the Mauve Skies over here was just a blue 1, so on hit it only generates 1 rune chant, but still, preventing that on hit, if you block with 2/3 blocks, that's 7 points of damage effectively that you're preventing.
And we're going to see Michael Hamilton. Wow. Brothers in Arms blue.
Yeah, Brothers in Arms, I mean, it's a card that we know is in his list that he won the World Championship with. Paired with the Ironhide Gauntlets, you got the 6 damage you need right here, and all he had to do was pitch a few ice cards.
And he's still up for a Waning Moon, holding back that card. He's not using the Alluvian as aggressively, which is interesting. It's one of those things where it does consume 2, I believe, to activate. But thinking about that, do you decide to go? If you have the resources, just pay with the resources and use the resources, and then guarantee yourself. Oh no, and he's going to Waning Moon right now. So he overpitched to prevent 2 Arcane, which is very respectable, and then use the Alluvian to snap him with the Waning Moon.
One thing that we see a lot of Icelander players doing is the moment they can, they swing, they use their Waning Moon, they play stuff at instant speed. Michael Hamilton, as we've seen consistently, is very practiced at doing things when they need to be done and not rushing them just to get the damage out. Over here, I don't think there was anything else Porter could have done until the end of the turn, but Michael Hamilton, just to make sure there was nothing that he might need those counters for, or nothing else to be aware of, there was no reason for him to swing Waning Moon until he did near the end of the turn there.
Absolutely, and that's the difference between someone like Michael Hamilton and someone like myself, where he sees everything. He is omniscient in that way, where he's able to see all the plays at once. But this is a play that I love to see, which is an activated Shrill. Right, in this case, we've got a Shrill the Skull Form coming for 7. One of those cards that when it was printed, no one thought anything of it, and then people went, "Wait, this is one of the best cards in the game." Good to see it represented again.
I don't know about no one thinking anything of it. I remember when my testing group was looking at these spoilers and we were talking about how we can best optimize Chain for the new meta, this was a card that was always at the beginning of our list of what to experiment with. And it looks like just the value that you can get, the blue card potentially being 5 damage, the red card, this comes in for 7 right now. It's something that is very effective for what it is. Maybe not as purely efficient as something like a Wounded Bull, but for only 2 resources, you definitely get what you're paying for.
Oh yeah, 7 for 2 is very, very good. And anytime you can mauve it, or in this case lead the charge, Go Again is good, man. Go Again is good.
Yeah, actually, even better than Go Again, it's another action point here. So if that were a Hypothermia in Hamilton's arsenal, it wouldn't be affecting this turn.
Very true, very true. And we're going to see Michael block with an Ice Eternal. I love seeing the list for Icelander, because as far as I can tell, Michael's list can be very aggressive, but if need be, he is playing the Ice Eternals, he is playing the Frost Hex, he is playing the combo. I'm not sure when he would pivot to that, but the deck has utility. It's able to kind of pivot into whatever matchup it needs to.
Yeah, there are some decks, like if you're playing Dash, you really have to decide at the beginning of the match, I'm going to go aggressive, I'm going to go more defensive. The Michael Hamilton Icelander list is one where you can really make a lot of decisions on the fly. Do I really focus on trying to get out my auras, my ice hexes, or my frost hexes, or do I play a more tempo game? Maybe I'm fine blocking with them, pitching them, Ice Eternal, Ice whatever, it's a 3-block blue. It really has the versatility to react to how your opponent is playing the game. One thing that I think is very interesting and a key point right now is that we see 6 rune chance on Porter's side, Michael Hamilton at 8 life. Next turn, he could present lethal. But Michael Hamilton, on the other hand, has what he needs to counter that. An Aether Ice Vein with only 2 AB on Porter's side, and it looks like that's an Ice Bolt that's going to be in Arsenal. 3 damage over there, 3 more damage coming in next turn, and another 3 damage from Waning Moon on top of whatever Stormstriders goes. Michael Hamilton is not sitting easy. He's threatening what could be lethal on Porter's next turn, and we're seeing that all right now. I have a feeling that the next turn will be the last turn of this game.
I mean, and it could be, for Porter or for Michael, like you said, 6 rune chance can lead to some devastating plays. And important note, Porter Jones is playing Vexing Quillhand, so there's also a window to get an extra 2 off very easily. And Creepers has also yet been used, so that is also something to look out for. Looking at, again, Scar for Scar, a card that I remember in Welcome to Wrath, limited or basic constructed, was a great card, and it's so good when it's good. When it has go again, it is brutally good, and that's likely why Michael said, you know what, I'll take some damage, go down again. Here's 4 go again, and here's an Aether Ice Vein. This one is blue, but again, AB2, he's not going to have a chance to say no to that.
Yeah, and it looks like Porter's choosing to prevent 2, pitch another 1. Oftentimes we'll see against an Aether Ice Vein, players will pitch a blue, prevent 1, use the other 2 resources so they can keep the extra card in their hand. But I guess at this point, every damage does count. So staying up at 12, Porter likely going to put that card in his arsenal, or just pass priority. We'll see. I may have overspoke when I said the game was going to end this turn, but still, with only 1 card, potentially 3 arcane damage to prevent, if Michael Hamilton is able to present 15, then that's a guaranteed win for him.
Pretty much, absolutely. And presenting 15 with the Ice Bolt in the arsenal, with the Waning Moon, that's, if I'm not mistaken, that's 5 damage off the bat, plus whatever he's got in hand. We could definitely see that, and it's going to be an arsenal draw into a red Aether Ice Vein fuse, obviously. So again, these cards are so good at just making it so you can't really have the turns you want to have.
Yeah, and this is exactly what Michael wants to see at this point of the game. Porter wants to have a turn where he can play his cards and win the game. And Michael's saying, no, you can't play your cards and win the game. I'm going to do what Icelander does best and disrupt your plan. All the while, chipping away at Porter's life, bringing it down so that there will eventually be that point where Michael can just swing for the win. That's his strategy. Whether or not he's able to consistently get that and Porter's able to potentially counter it, we'll see. But I feel like I'd rather be in Michael Hamilton's shoes with what I've seen so far on the board right now.
Absolutely. With what the game state is right now, those 6 rune chants are great, but if you can't fire them off profitably, it's 6 auras. And as a good old Prism player, it doesn't really matter how many auras you have. If you can't use them, they're useless. But yeah, in this case, Aether Ice Vein again. Every time I see that card, I'm like, this is a common. This is so good. It is so damn good. Probably one of the best commons in FAB. And we're gonna see an Arcane Barrier for 2, taking 1, taking 3, and pitching for the on hit trigger. The 2 to make sure.
Yeah, Porter really wanting to keep as many cards in his hand as he can. Michael Hamilton saying, okay, if you're taking damage, take some more damage. Because Michael's going to draw up at the end of this turn, and Porter isn't.
That's the most dangerous thing about Icelander is that, if they have a turn of action, you have to react to whatever they're doing, and then they pass the buck to you, you are down on cards, they have a full grip, and they could just, slam you. And that's typically how the game ends. It's, I had to overblock, I had to overpitch, I'm down to 1 or 2 cards, and my opponent is just ripping me apart.
Yeah, 2 damage here threatened by the Waning Moon. 3 cards in Porter's hand, 1 card in Porter's arsenal, 6 rune chants up. On Porter's turn, probably, he's going to present an attack that may be enough to close out the game, and Michael Hamilton's going to present a counterattack that will potentially win it. Unless Porter continues to play more defensive like we saw last turn, just blocking and, passing his priority early. It looks like he's considering taking the damage. I saw his cursor go over the life counter. I see him double checking, what's in his arsenal, what's in his hand, going down to 6 right now. So just in raw damage alone, the arsenal and the waning moon for Michael Hamilton present lethal, though there is still the 2AB to consider.
Absolutely. And I think if you're Porter, you're thinking my tunic's going to go live. I've got the vexing, I've got the reach. It's just a matter of Michael not having the execute off the Storm Striders, which at this point, pretty unlikely that would be the case. If I was playing against Michael, I'd probably think, yeah, he's gonna get me. But okay, we're gonna see here. Oh, and that is a bad omen of pitching a red to begin, 2 floating. So at least he's
Actually,
got the
I think
range,
that's intentional because he's getting both modes of Deathly Duet activated.
which is +2 and on hit create 2 rune chance, or just create 2 rune chance.
I believe it just creates the rune chance.
It does, yeah, it does just create 2 rune chance. Absolutely. So he's still threatening. Is this 12? Because Deathly Duet is a base 4 +2, right? Yeah, exactly. Base 4 +2.
Yeah, so we got 12 damage on the board. We've got 2 rune chants in the back. Right now, there's no go again or extra action point. Spellbound Creepers are still around, 2 arcane or 2 resources up. But I don't know if I were Porter, if I would pay for a Spellbound Creepers, because I'm really worried about having that arcane barrier necessary to not lose out at this life total. Michael Hamilton going down to 5, so very much still alive at this point.
And you're Michael Hamilton right now. You're essentially in the driver's seat, and it's one of those things where it's I'm dead now, or I win. Like in the good old days of Kano, you've got these things. There's like I'm dealing you 18. Do I got it? Do I got it? Have I got this? And in Michael's case, it's all about what's in his hand. Does he have 4 arcane damage in his hand that he could just go? Here's 4. Here's the waning moon, and the card that's in Arsenal, I'm not sure if that is still the Ice Bolt from earlier. It could very well be.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
at this point, I'm sitting there as the Runeblade player asking my opponent wizard, am I dead?
Yeah,
It's
pretty
just a
much.
simple question. Am I dead, or is another turn going to happen in this game? You've seen what I have for my turn. Pretty much, unless the Spellbound Creepers do get activated, I'm not doing anything special. I just want to know if I'm dead, or do I get to draw more cards and extend the game?
Yeah, you've got those moments where just show me what you got. Like you got it, you have it. Okay, thank you. All right, 3-1. Let's go. Let's keep going.
Yeah, we have the defense reaction. That all you got. I really wish there was another card. Show me what you got, because I would probably have that in my wallet just ready to pull out. Like, okay, I'm ready. Show me what you got.
Yeah, show me what you got. Am I dead? Don't just kill the suspense. Let me know what my fate is. And there's quite a bit of suspense here. So I'm looking at the game state. I'm thinking, does Michael Hamilton not have an arcane damage card in hand?
Yeah, we know that there's only 2 AB on Porter's side. So if he plays his Ice Bolt, one of those is going to get through. If he plays his Waning Moon, another one's going to get through. Looks like he's choosing to block here with his Crown and his Fendel's Fighting Spirit, gaining him another life, actually. So I think Michael's saying, you know what, maybe I'm not going to spend all my resources trying to end the game out now. I'm okay taking another turn, because I don't anticipate too much more threatening me before I have that chance. That's really the control player's decision, and something that they have often as an advantage. It does look, though, like we're seeing those boots come in, and a Gorganian Tome was the last card in hand. So a pretty big, I'm not going to say a bluff, but, that pitches for nothing. And I guess he could always have used it in response thanks to the Spellbound Creepers. But very interesting move to see this at this point in the game.
Absolutely, and we're gonna see Porter go. You know what? Let's go all the way. Let's full send. We've got a Vexing Quill Hand activation, getting him 2 more rune chance, going up to 4, and very likely a Rosetta Swing. Now, if that card in hand is blue, is that the end of the game? Although this was pre-recorded, Andy and I do not know how this game ends.
Yeah, we haven't been looking at those results. Looks like Michael Hamilton is pitching blue. That's to prevent some damage, taking some arcane, and then blocking physical. Looks like he had that other Fandol's Fighting Spirit. Yeah, so very efficient 2-block gain of life. against the Rosetta Thorn. That last card that Porter drew going into Arsenal. So the game isn't over yet, and Porter is going to be coming back with a full grip. Michael Hamilton not having anything to threaten on his own turn.
Wow. And looking at the game state, we know that there's an ice bolt in Arsenal. Michael unfortunately was not able to chip Porter because if he had the ability to, would have been able to ice bolt into Waning Moon, forcing Porter to react and pitch. But Porter's turn was just too aggressive. Michael had to respect it, had to put the blocks down. Final Fighting Spirit, great card, blocks for 2.
Yeah. So against Rosetta Thorn, it's nice. Against the Deathly Duet, that extra block might have been, well, it wasn't any worse because he did gain the life there. The real interesting thing, though, is we're talking about instant speed at this point. The creepers can provide instant speed non-attack actions for Porter, but what they can't do is deal arcane damage directly. The rune chants are triggered on attacks, and you're not able to just swing random arcane damage as the Rune Blade as a non-attack action. That's the wizard's thing to do. Unless you have maybe a Sonata Arcanix, but I haven't seen any of those coming in right now. So really, Porter's playing basically at normal speed. He's using his actions. Michael Hamilton can respond. And in that response, he almost always has the wait but if he wants to close it out. There's no wait but on the Runeblade side.
No. Runeblade plays, although a lot of people will say Runeblades aren't very fair, Wizards can play at can do unfair things in my opinion. I love Wizards. I've played a lot of Kano, but being able to play things before your opponent can is always a bit of an advantage.
Yeah. So over here we do see the tactically played Ice Bolt. This is coming in right now with Mauve Skies showing up because that is threatening the Frostbite. Or not threatening, that is giving the Frostbite thanks to Icelander's ability. Whatever Porter was planning on doing, now it's taxed. It costs 1 more. Maybe that'll be enough to swing it in Michael's favor. We'll find out probably in just a few seconds.
And if I'm Porter, I'm looking, and we're playing face to face with Michael. I want to see how often he's looking at those Striders. That's what I want to know. I want to know if they're online, if he could use them, if he's staring at them, trying to find a window. That's what I want to know. But we're just going to see a Rosetta hit or swing with Rosetta with no activation. It's just 2 in this case. It does not have go again because if I'm not mistaken, Malvern Skies is attack action, correct?
Yeah, that's right. The next Runeblade attack action card. So very specific things that Mavrian Skies hits, and none of them are Rosetta Thorn.
Oh, and this is where we're going to see maybe a slip there. Oh, no. Okay, perfect. Pitching and we're going to see the infamous play here. Storm Striders into Aether Ice Vein. Now, this is I believe this is a yellow Aether Ice Vein.
Yellow, and it looks like with only Arcane Barrier 1, that closes out the game. So Michael Hamilton for Indy Arsenal winning this round against Porter Jones from Team Card Advantage. These are the quarterfinals of the FAB Team Cup. We've got one more game coming to you tonight, but while our producer sets that up, I think we've got a little bit of things to talk about.
We do. First thing that's important to remember is that this league is brought to you by FAB Foundry, so fabfoundry.co. I believe Adam, our producer right now, is showing his desktop to our crew, to you guys.
Or actually, no, switch to our faces.
There you go. We have a switch to our faces. Beautiful. Perfect. Alrighty. So Fab Foundry is sponsoring this league at fabfoundry.co. Make sure to use the code Team Cup 10 for 10% off your singles purchases. And talking about singles, I wanted to talk about Everfest because I, like a lot of people, bought into Everfest, bought quite a bit of Everfest. And for a while, I felt a little unenthused about the set, especially since Starvo's been banned. That was kind of the big focus of the set to a certain point. And now I'm seeing a lot more players asking for Everfest cards, Stalagmite and Teklo Pounders and a few other cards. I think that's a good thing. I think that means that we're seeing new players enter the game, enter the hobby, and looking for those hard-to-find Everfest cards. What do you think about that, Andy?
I think there are a few things going on. First is there are always new players joining the game. That's great about the growth of the game, looking for staples for the decks they want to build. But secondly, I think we have both decks are changing and new decks are becoming top of the meta. We're seeing cards like This Round's on Me, a blue 3-block card. Each player draws a card. The opponent's attacks are attack for slightly less. This is something that we've seen show up a little bit in meta decks. Now we're starting to see it a bit more, and that's a card that's definitely been rising in price as a single. We're also just seeing things like different heroes showing up closer to the top of the meta. Dash has been performing very well at the recent Battle Harmons and the associated PTI events, so those Teklo Pounders are starting to rise in popularity as well. People want to play the deck that's winning, they want the card that they don't have, and they don't have the card from Everfest. It's interesting for me because I've definitely seen a lot of local game stores or even the prize wall stations over at Worlds had Everfest product that they were trying to get rid of. And nowadays, it looks like it's Everfest product that people wish they had in hand.
Absolutely. I remember buying into Everfest, getting a few cases for myself and feeling a little bit of regret with the purchase. But now I'm like, wait, these cards are good. Everybody wants them. So eventually, as the game keeps growing, we're going to see a lot of those cards become more valuable, which is great for us collectors, but it's also great for the community. It just means that there's interest in new decks and new techniques and new strategies. Talking about new decks, new strategies, new cards, Outsiders is going to be coming in Q1 of 2023. Our first standard set or constructed limited set of the year. What do you think about Outsiders? Would you have any predictions? Anything wild that you'd like to see?
Yeah, we're going back to the pits. This is an area we haven't really seen since that Arcane Rising set. I know a few of my locals are very enthusiastic about the confirmed notion that we're getting Azalea back, whether that's going to be a new talent version of Azalea or just some specializations or some additional tech for her. I don't know for sure. Looking at that one preview card that we saw, I can't remember the name, but the playmat they're going to give away at the recent callings. Looking forward to getting that. The art is really sick. It looks like we have something flamethrower related. Maybe that's mechanologist. Maybe that's a hint of something related to the talents for the pits. Based on the lore, I'm told that there's a group that likes using fire over there. Overall, I think there's a lot that's going to be interesting, and it's always fun when new sets come out in Flesh and Blood. We're in this point where the game is so young that we don't have all that meat from the lore that's really evolved yet. We've been through a few places. We know in Monarch there was a conflict between Solana and the Demonstry, the light and the darkness. We don't know too much about how that ended, if it has ended. We're over in Volcor now with Uprising and Dynasty. The Emperor was killed recently in Dynasty, but what's the fallout from that going to look like? Over in the pits, is that going to be related to either of these struggles, or is there going to be something new coming up? I think it's still a very exciting point, and regardless of the cards, the lore is exciting. Regardless of the lore, it'll be fun to get another draft set. I believe I saw somewhere that this is going to be a set where we have 4 draftable heroes, and we haven't had another one of those back since Monarch. It's been 3 in Tales, 3 in Arcane, or 3 in Uprising. So overall, I think there's a lot to look forward to once we reach Q2, end of Q1. I think it was March.
End of Q1. Yeah, I saw March. I saw end of Q1, which would make sense because we're going into ProQuest season, which is something I'm very excited about. I know I'm going to be attending as many as I can. I qualified through ProQuest to be able to attend both Lille and the US, and both those events, those ProQuest Pro Tours, kind of changed me as a player, coming from other TCGs and never really playing on the pro level. Flesh and Blood was my first foray into the community of those levels of players, and something that got me hooked to the game, got me hooked to the community. And I'll say it once, I'll say it again. Flesh and Blood, I've been playing card games for a very long time. It is the absolute apex of game design, in my opinion. I think it's the most well put together card game that I've seen in my lifetime, and I will keep playing it until there's no more games to play, which hopefully will be a very, very, very long time from now, and hopefully never.
This ProQuest season, I think, is going to be very unique compared to the previous ProQuest seasons. And I think the main reason for that is just because, in my opinion at least, and the opinions of many I've talked to, there is much less of an obvious deck choice to play this season as there was in ProQuest 1 or in ProQuest 2. Around where I was locally, Bravo Star of the Show was the star of the show for the ProQuests. I won a ProQuest qualifying, one of the ProQuest level 2 with Starvo. It was a fun deck to play, not as fun to play against. But for me, it was like, okay, I see this hero. I know what the deck I'm going to build about this looks like. Now I just have to figure out how to counter all the other decks. This time around, I think there are a lot of very playable decks, and a lot of decks don't have any obvious, no weakness situations. If I'm playing as one deck, I always want to avoid some of the other ones in match pair ups. So I've really been working with my testing group, focusing on what is the right deck to play, what is the right thing to focus my attention on, because I know if I get paired up against the wrong deck, I'll probably lose the game, but I still want to make things as close as possible and really hone my skills. But still, it's like always that extra thing in the back of my head. What if I was playing that other deck? Would I be doing better?
I love the way you go about thinking about, decks, and it's true that you and I have been playing the game for quite some time, and thinking back to the Starvo days, and I'm a Prism player. I've been playing Prism. She's gotten me into all my win-ins, and ever since she, Chain, and Starvo have gone, which is hilarious because the Pro Tour New Jersey was Chain, Starvo, and Prism to a certain extent. Ever since she's gone, I've been trying to find my footing and testing a lot of different decks, and dripping, trying Dromai. I'm on Dromai right now, sticking with that Illusionist plan, but I've revisited decks that I've since kind of put away. I love Dorinthia. I'm a big Dorinthia fan. I think that she plays the game on a different level and puts a lot of responsibility on your opponent, which is a great thing for a deck to do. And we're seeing Rhinar, we're seeing Azalea being played. We just saw Viserai being played against Michael Hamilton, and we're going to see two completely different heroes just here in a minute. That's really interesting to me. I think that it's really cool to see an open meta, or as open as it's ever been in Flesh and Blood.
Yeah, definitely. With that, why don't we go into our next game? I think Adam, our producer, has that all queued up. This is going to be a game between Raj Parikh from Indy Arsenal against Brandon Lundie from Team Card Advantage. Just to double check, producer, which one is going to be on the left here and which is on the right? All right, so we have, So on the left, Raj Parikh is going to be on Phi, and on the right, Brandon Lundie from Team Card Advantage on Dash. So Dash, we were just talking about one of those heroes that has definitely been picking up steam as it is in the meta right now, against definitely a crowd favorite at these major events in Phi. Let's see how this particular game ends up heading out.
You know what? I love Phi, and I think we saw Phi with Stubby Hammers. Saw Phi with Stubby Hammers for a little while, getting kind of out of whack and got banned very fast. But Daniel Rakowski, who's playing Phi into Worlds, and kind of the nemesis of Michael Hamilton in a way, popularized the deck, or showed popular what the deck is in Lava Bursts. I defend Lava Bursts, that Phi in Blood, in the way that it has the ability to really, move around. And are we seeing a little bit of a lag on the stream? Is that possible, guys? Could you tell us in the chat?
All right, it looks like it's smoothing out, so that's good. Yeah, Phi, a very consistent aggro deck. Dash, a deck that people have been playing aggressively, people have been playing defensively. Looking at the equipment loadout here, we have the Hanabi Blaster, a new Dynasty weapon, paired with that Teklo Pounder. So this is a clear sign that Brandon is intending to race in this match. Really try and put out more damage than Phi and take the win that way.
I wasn't sure for a second there. I thought you were going to throw a quick one on us and be like, he's obviously on Exodia. Hanabi Blaster is so good. I love it. Like, it's one of those cards, I saw it, I'm like, this is way too spicy to be good. And then people started playing it. I'm like, no, this is actually a very legitimate card to be playing.
Yeah, with a deck where you can reliably get 3 boost attacks. I mean, we see a maximum velocity blocking right now. That's another card where if you can get 3 boost attacks, why not get 2 more resources, throw in another 10 damage to the mix? Dash has some large effects that she can put out when the chain gets long with a bunch of boost stuff. And I think the aggro decks that have been maximizing it haven't been that Exodia. They haven't been really building the robot suit. They've been focusing on getting steam counters on Hanabi Blaster, swinging in with 3 boost attacks, and then, oh, here's another 5 damage every other time they can get that off.
And the all-star of that deck, in my opinion, is Combustible Courier. I know it costs 2, but boy, do I love that card.
Yeah, Combustible Courier. If it hits, your next attack gets, I believe, +3 for the red, 2 for the yellow, 1 for the blue, or maybe +3 for all of them. But still,
for all of them, but the power of itself is lower.
Okay.
We're going to see here. I forget the name of this card. It says it replicates Data Doll's ability of if the next attack hits. BIOS update. If the next attack hits, you get to whenever you boost. If it's an item, you get to put it into play. In this case, I believe they're just playing it for the +3. But I love that card. Anything that's like Plunder Run-ish, I'm a big fan.
Yeah, and already here we've seen 2 of the new Dash cards from Dynasty on the board. Hanabi Blaster 1, that BIOS update another. In general, you want to get about 3 value per card. That's the baseline. BIOS update provides +3, but also if one of those boosts ends up being an item, you get that item for free, which is worth potentially an action point, potentially some resources. So overall, it's been a card that people have liked to play. Following up this turn, Brandon's ended it up with one of those Teklo cores, the Dash specialization. Provides 4 resources over the course of 2 turns for the price of 1 action point. So over here, it looks like leaving Raj with the 5-card hand, or 4 cards and the arsenal. He was able to get these out. The life total bringing him down to 32. We'll see how much damage the Fi player is going to put out in response to all of this from Dash.
Absolutely, and Boost Dash is able to do quite a bit of damage, but Fly can do things that are just if you're able to do 27 damage in 1 turn without sweating too much, I think that's a big not statement, but I think it shows just what the deck's made of.
Yeah, I think overall these aggro decks, they've gotten more powerful as the game has progressed, and to a point where we see lots of strong aggro and lots of strong disruption in the Ice Heroes. It's definitely a different meta than what we saw even at the Pro Tour 1 or the Pro Tour 2, when we had decks like Prism with their auras that could effectively stall certain strategies, or decks like Starvo and Chain that they were aggressive in their own ways. I think what we have now is definitely a different breed of aggression. You're not blocking as much, you're just providing straight damage as much as you can.
And oftentimes the response to straight damage is going to be yeah, okay, how much is that? Yeah, okay, perfect, thank you, I'll take 2. What's next? And that's exactly what's happening here. It's just a clear exchange of take 3, yeah, it's fine. Take 2, yeah, it's fine. Take 3, yeah, it's fine. Take 20, eh.
Yeah, we see Raj has chosen to use Mask of the Pouncing Lynx. So there's not even a worry on Brennan's side. Do I have to stop 1 of every 3 attacks so that I don't give them the extra card here? At some point during the game, Raj is going to get a Lava Burst probably, or Assault the Wound, and that's just an inevitable fact with that mask out.
Yeah, you're just going to try it. If it's Assault the Wound, you want to get it on a turn that doesn't have 7 attack action cards in the link, hopefully. And yeah, the meta in the U.S. and North America in general, it's kind of a trade for trade, like aggro, but that's a very us thing, or very area specific. Because the second you start going outside, people are playing aggro decks, but they're playing like Rhinar and all these different things. But I think Fi and Boost Dash are something we're going to see a lot of in North American Pro Quests. Definitely, I'm expecting Dash to dominate Pro Quest season.
Yeah, Dash, one of those decks that, as it's grown in popularity, people are starting to wonder, what are the weaknesses of Dash? A lot of decks, it's an obvious counterplay. I think Fi is the one deck that people have been saying, yeah, usually Fi is a bit more consistent than Dash. Maybe they can win the race. But Dash has a strong position into the Ice Heroes, into Oldhim. She's probably Oldhim's worst matchup. Into Icelander, there's a shot that she can out aggro, so Icelander isn't able to beat it out. Definitely a strong option looking into Pro Quests.
Absolutely.
And it's very different to play than other decks that people have considered. Easier in some ways, harder in another.
It is, and talking about strong options, we're going to see a very strong turn here from Raj. Going, we're looking at that Rise Phoenix Rising, or I forget the name of the card, Rising of the Phoenix. It is a +3 to the next Draconic card into a Blaze Headlong, for 7 into a Phoenix Flame, into the Sword, into, my lord, into Brand with Cinderclaw, into Snatch, making it Draconic, popping the boots, and then hitting the card, drawing a card, using Mask of the Pouncing Lynx. And this is what Fi does. This is just absolute insanity.
Yeah, so far he's dealt 17 damage this turn. That's before Salt the Wound, right? Salt the
That's
Wound,
before. Yeah.
bringing him down to 18, taking up some equipment block. It's a good turn. Brandon decided to say, okay, that's a good turn. Look what I got. I've got some stuff I want to do. Leading out with that Goliath Gauntlet into your mention.
It's my favorite card. Combustible Courier, or red one nonetheless. So red Combustible Courier, paying it with the Teklo Core, which is just gravy, and then coming in for a brutal, what is it, 8?
Yeah, 5 plus, or
Actually 9, yeah, 9. Is Combustible Courier
right,
4 or 5? I think it's 5. So
yeah,
coming in
5
for
plus
9.
2 plus 2, 9. We can do math, we promise.
It's Christmas, man. It's holidays. I'm good. I've done as much math as I can this year. My brain is off, but this is brutal. I love Combustible Courier. I think it's one of those cards that if you do not block it, things get very out of hand very fast.
Yeah, you try to think when you're playing against aggressive decks that present damage like this, how do you choose what to block if you're going to block? Right here, you have a card where if you don't block it, it's 3 extra damage. So maybe you have to block 9, but if you don't, you're actually letting 12 through.
Yeah, Combustible Courier coming for 8.
8,
I
okay.
was wrong. It starts at 4. So my apologies, everybody in the chat watching us right now. We're both in holiday brain, so apologies. But still, 8. You still have to give it 3 cards. It's the same block.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it looks like we are seeing from Raj 3 cards plus the equipment. So really,
Wow.
you don't want to get those extra 3 damage through to the point where you're willing to effectively sacrifice the bulk of your next turn.
Oh
Ooh.
boy. And T-Bone forcing that Tiger Stripe Shuko block. Wow.
Yeah, T-Bone is one of those cards when it was spoiled for Everfest, people were wondering how oppressive is this going to be? If you play 1 T-Bone at the beginning of the game, you can block with Snapdragon Scalers, you don't worry about it, but later in the game, when you've already blocked with one thing, or if you have multiple T-Bones, you can say, all this equipment, all this strategy you've been trying to save for the rest of the game, I'll take that now, especially when they have Blade Break or Temper.
Oh, and you spoke about this card earlier, but we're seeing it played right now. Max Velocity coming in for 10 clean damage.
Mm-hmm.
Raj saying, you know what, that's fine. I'm just going to respect that and take 10. But I love, how that Combustible Courier, because Fi, here's a hot take on Dash and Fi, right? So Dash doesn't have a lot of block 2 cards. Fi has a lot of block 2 cards. So in that mirror, Dash can block so much more, gracefully than Fi can. Fi sometimes having to drop 4 cards to block, 3 cards to block 6, which is just in an aggro matchup, that's very relevant.
Yeah, this is, I think, one of the things that sets the decks apart. It's an aggressive deck. It's labeled as an aggressive deck. I mean, we saw people building Fi, Dan Rakowski, and the Runaways, where we knew they knew they'd have to block with some cards, but they wanted to get the most efficiency out of the rest of their hand as possible, and they built a deck that did very well with that. Dash, on the other hand, this is a deck where if the Dash player wants, they can go full turtle, full defensive, really provide a different game plan altogether. There is no plan B like that with Fi as much. But even on the aggressive Dash builds, stuff like this where you see Hanabi Blaster, they could choose to block as much as they wanted, and it's usually amongst the most efficient blocking that you're going to get.
Absolutely. And in this case now, we saw an Enlightened Strike being used for 7 from Raj, and we're going back to Dash now. Dash, this is the final activation of that Tekla card, giving them 2 resources. Tekla Pounder still has an activation on it. Hanabi Blaster has 1 charge. Is it 2 or 3 charges on Hanabi Blaster? I believe it is 2, but let me just
it requires 2. So if 3 boost cards are played, then the Hanabi Blaster could swing after that this turn.
Yeah, exactly. So there's definitely a play here where we could see, boost into Hanabi Blaster. Being that both players are sub 20 life, these swings will matter. They are relevant, and we're going to see Tekla Pounder go off here. So this is a high-speed impact, giving the next thing Dominate if it hits, coming in for 7.
Yeah, high-speed impact, really the other on-hit that you're seeing in a lot of the dash builds right now. Not as effective as Combustible Courier. Dominate isn't necessarily the same thing as more damage, especially when you're in a block, or when you're in a more aggressive race and you're not blocking as much. But still, it's worth considering.
I just want to correct myself. I said it was coming for 7. It is coming in for 9. That Tekla Pounder had not been added yet to the dice.
Yeah, lots of math to do over in my time zone, at least. The sun set a long time ago.
Well, look, this is where what I mentioned earlier. Like, you're presenting 9. Fi doesn't block handsomely. He just doesn't. So
yeah, and that's lethal. Raj is at
Yeah.
7 left.
So Raj was at 16. I believe he is taking the 9, bringing him down to 7.
Okay,
Yeah,
there we go.
he was at 16, taking 9, going down to 7. But at that point, if you're Raj, do you start doing that thing where you go, I think he's got me, or are you confident that with 4 cards you can close the gap?
I think it really depends on what the next few cards that we see out of Brandon are. In the aggressive player, you don't block until you know you have to block, or if there's a reason. Combustible Courier, that's a reason to block. You're preventing more damage by blocking that early. Over here, Brandon didn't have a big follow-up to that turn. He played his Teklo Pounder, very strong in the future, but now Raj has the ability to come back with a 4-card hand. He still has his Emberblade. He's got the Phoenix Flame in his graveyard that he can pull up. Fi can do a lot with a 4-card hand.
Absolutely. And I'm thinking of the play before this. We saw Brandon use his Crown of Providence to flush away a card. I would guess that he was looking for another attack action and probably did not find it, choosing to go with that Tekla Pounder. Because I was looking at the play, I'm like, there's no real reason to use the Crown right there. You just soak up the damage and keep the Crown for a more critical turn. But Crown is great at reforming hands, and I think that's what Brandon had to do. Possibly, unfortunately, didn't find the card there. Both players taking a little bit of time here. I think this turn, you were mentioning when we saw the last game with Michael Hamilton, there was a kind of a moment where that this is the turn where the game is decided pretty much. Right? There's a moment where the stars kind of start to align and a victor is being decided, more or less. This is the turn. This is where Raj can either, make a mark and bring the opponent down to a critical life total, and we're going to see it with a Belittle, showing Brand pitching an E-Strike, going to get a Minnowism.
Yeah, Belittle, one of those cards that people have considered, Belittle is overpowered. Belittle is overpowered for aggro, because it does give you the ability to, for 1 resource, 3 damage, go again, and you're either getting 3 more resources if you take a blue, or you're getting 3 more damage. So it's like a 3 for 6 basic, or a 1 for 6. Very effective in setting up the big turns like you might need to close out the game if you're the Fi right here. We're seeing a lot of Fi's great cards coming in. We're seeing the Brand with Cinderclaw in red, that's 3 damage. We're seeing a Mounting Anger, which maybe if played earlier could have gotten that Brand with Cinderclaw in for 1 more damage. It's like a mini version of the Combustible Courier.
I think the reason for it being played later is essentially the fish for blocks earlier on 3s instead of and then delaying the 4. Because we could still get a Phoenix Flame after this. There is a world where in response he Phoenix Flames, banished the Phoenix Flames +2, making the Phoenix Flame a little bit more aggressive. And it is a 4 damage. So considering that Teklo Foundry Heart is still up. If I'm a betting man, I'm seeing Tekla Foundry +1 card on that Mounting Anger, and then Phoenix Flame for 1 would be my bet. If I'm Brandon playing here, but I don't know what's in his hand. He's got a fresh Tekla Pounder and might want to try to get all the gas out of it.
Yeah, Fi is one of those decks that I never really got the reps on that I need, so I miss the tricks like that. I think I brought it to an armory once. I played it, and it just didn't feel like as good for me as the Oldhim deck that I had been running previously. So I went back to Oldhim and I rocked him up right until the end of Worlds.
You know what, man? To each their own. And I saw someone in the chat say, "Play what you're most comfortable with," and I think that that's a very important thing to keep in mind is if you're playing the deck you like, you're never going to be wrong. And win or lose, play what you like to play. It depends on your mentality, depends on where you are. But playing the deck you like is always the right answer, unless the deck you like is unfortunately, if you want to win and you want to play a deck that sadly doesn't really, it all depends on where you are as a player. But playing the deck you like is absolutely the right answer.
Yeah, for most people, you do better on the deck you have the reps on, even if it's not the top deck of the meta, than you do if you pick up the top deck of the meta the week before the tournament and just try and jam it out.
And I have a
for many
story for you
people-
after this. But yes, we're going to go back into the game.
Yeah, over here we're seeing, 1 life left on Brandon. We have 6 life on Raj. This is really where the play, the left and the right, and who's going to be able to deal that damage, get those cards out of hand to prevent the other from losing comes into effect. We see a block right away on that first 0 to 60 from Brandon or from Raj. Raj saying, "I don't need that Command and Conquer next turn. It's not part of my plan. I'll stop 3 damage right now." We're seeing another zipper hit coming through, and depending on that last card in Brandon's hand, if it's a boost card, we could be seeing that followed by the Hanabi Blaster, a significant amount of damage. And it looks like it
Exactly.
is.
It is, absolutely. Throttle Blue for 4 with Go Again coming in from the boost. Hanabi Blaster to 2. Wow, isn't that awesome?
Yeah, so this is 9 damage effectively being threatened on the board. Unlikely that Raj will be able to block all of that. Just given
He will
5
not.
density for 2 blocks. And yeah, it
And
looks
that
like
is
that's
the
going to be
game.
game.
Wow, that is the game. And again, seeing how 5 struggles sometimes to block, we're seeing 2 blocks for 2 here with the snatches, and those, are generic that the deck chooses to play, but there's a lot of 2 blocks in the deck, which, I don't want to say Dash is favored because with all the tricks, you mentioned that you hadn't played Fi, and that's kind of the big difference between an outstanding Fi player, someone who really puts the reps in. There are so many little tricks that you can pull with Fi, with Art of War and with the mounting angers and the on hits, and there's so many weird things that you can do with that deck. And the thing that I wanted to mention, you mentioned that you're an Oldhim player. I personally, for Nationals, Prism had just gotten banned, and I didn't know what to play. And I said, you know what, I'm going to play Oldhim. And the truth of the matter is, it doesn't matter how good of a player I am or how good of a player I think I am. I didn't have the reps. I showed up with the best deck in the format, and it didn't go my way. It did not go my way. I lost. And again, it was just due to me not, knowing the deck well enough to execute what could have been. So playing what you want, playing what you like, and knowing the deck is key, because that's the difference between Daniel Rakowski and anybody who tries to play Fi. He's got the reps. He knows the deck.
Yeah. Overall, I think it's a very fun opportunity for people. The month of December basically is the free month, right? We had no major events in the US, at least. We had some large battle hardens after Philadelphia across the world. But for a lot of people, this is either a time to rest or a time to practice. You've got a month to learn a new deck. Personally, I've played a lot of Oldhim, but with all these dashes lying around, I'll tell the world I'm not bringing Oldhim to my pro quests. I don't feel comfortable with Oldhim. So I've been practicing up on an alternative, and hopefully it'll do well. We'll have to see in another month.
So I'll drop this little thing here. So I'm in the same kind of spot where I was playing Dromai, I've been playing Dromai, and I founded the matchup into Dash. The Dash opponent really needs to slip, so you have to have one of those Kyloria turns that goes through, and you can take one of their induction chambers and swing the game your way. But I've been working on an alternative deck, and it's something that's way out there. I played it in one of my game league matches against a Dash player, and it did extremely well. It performed exactly as I wanted, but it's kind of almost tooled to beat Dash. That's likely what I'll be playing this season, just because I believe it's going to be the best deck in the format, just because of how flexible it is. And so if you're watching this and you think, I really should get Dash singles, I really should get Dash, where can I buy Dash cards? You can buy them at fabfoundry.co and use the code TeamCup10 for 10% off your purchase. What a great spot that was.
Yeah, excellent segue to the sponsor. Thank you all for watching our games in the Team Cup today. We had Game 1, Michael Hamilton from Team Indy Arsenal beating Porter Jones from Team Card Advantage, and Game 2, Brandon Lundie from Team Card Advantage beating Parikh from Indy Arsenal. So in these games over here, it's net neutral for the teams. Each of these rounds is best 3 of 5, and we'll see on Sunday who ends up advancing to the semifinal rounds.
Absolutely, and I want to, on the team here, everybody from our production staff to myself, Andy, and all the other casters, I want to wish everybody a safe and happy holiday season. We're going to know more on Sunday as to how everything gets taken. Actually, I think it was moved to the 27th, if I'm not mistaken, to give everybody a chance to rest over the holidays. So we will know on Tuesday who is going to be our finalists. But thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for supporting the Team League. It's been a blast for me, Andy. I'm sure you've had a blast as well.
Oh yeah, it's a pleasure as always.
Beautiful, guys. So we'll talk to you very, very soon. We'll get back to you with semifinal coverage right after the holidays. And we're working on maybe getting some guests in to do some commentating spots as well. So we'll keep everybody abreast of the information. So happy holidays, everyone.
Bye all.